Welcome to Boschendal, the Nicholas Red Blazer series, where myself and Maponyane meet a series of South African entrepreneurs and get to tell their stories. This week, Andile Khumalo tells a story of a little serendipity and a lot of hard work that's culminated in a remarkable career with a particular passion for entrepreneurs. Hello, welcome to another episode of Boschendal, the Nicholas Red Blazer series. And welcome, I have to confess, to the first episode where we've had to do a second take. Because when we began our first recording, I started by running through Andile Khumalo's CV. And 32 minutes later, I wasn't actually finished and we hadn't even begun the show properly. So let me simply start by saying, hello Andile, because that's a lot easier than running through everything you've done in this extraordinary career of yours.
Hi there.
And it's lovely to have you on the
Thanks
series.
for having me.
And I remember Maps and I were talking the other day, who would be the perfect person for this show? And I think Maps at just about the same time, we both looked at each other and said, Andile Khumalo.
Absolutely. I mean, who else would you want that has so many credentials, has done just about everything, especially in the entrepreneurial space, and who fits that Red Blazer series mold better than this man himself? And it really is a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, gents.
And of course, you're a man we both used to like until about 20 minutes ago when you arrived wearing a Liverpool shirt for two United fans. But we won't hold that against you.
I did my research and I found out you're a United fan, so it was only right.
Well, I'm not surprised you did your research because you're clearly somebody who doesn't do anything in half measures. And I think that's been one of the hallmarks of this extraordinary career of yours. But before we look into where you are now, let's go back to the very beginning. Talk to us about your early journey into the business world and what it was about the space you now find yourself in that first flashed up ahead of you and said, this is where I need to be.
I was fortunate, Dan. I mean, I was lucky enough to know from a very young age that all I wanted to be was an entrepreneur. I had some flashes of hopes of being a footballer, but those were quickly dashed when my neighbor's kid was the best player just in our street. So it was clear I was not going to make any global football career work. But on a serious note, that's all I've ever wanted to do since I was in school, selling sweets in school, even in football. Actually, I was busy taking bets in football matches, and in high school, I even started a tuck shop in my high school. We didn't have one. And we had to all leave the school and go buy from the ladies who were selling stuff outside the gate. I decided, no, what we needed was a tuck shop. The school helped me. I started it and I ran it pretty much through my senior years in high school. So it's something I've always wanted to do. And I was fortunate that when I was in matric, a specific teacher, gave me the advice and motivated me that, I should pursue a career in business. And he told me that chartered accountants, or rather business people, are either chartered accountants or engineers. And when I heard accounting, I thought money, and I thought, okay, maybe there's something there for me. And I had no way of going to school. My family was just didn't have the means to be able to take me to university. And somebody told me about bursaries. And if you've read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, he talks a lot about how people's journeys are defined by the places and times they find themselves in. So I was in high school. My last year of high school was 1995.
Wow.
So it was a year after the first democratic elections in South Africa. And literally every company was looking to put young black children who had aspirations of building a career of sorts through school. So there were enough bursaries if you had decent grades. And so I worked for decent grades. I wrote hundreds of letters and literally hundreds of letters. And I got a shot and Deloitte took me to school. And here I am.
Jeez. Well, obviously a wealth of wisdom I can learn from only not Dan, but also you now, because when you got your bursary, I was only 5. But I mean, let's talk about that journey from Deloitte bursary, becoming a chartered accountant, and then ending up at Investec per chance.
Yeah.
How did that work out? And then figuring out now it's the right time to go into business, because you didn't stay there very long. And as a person who's all about timing, and we've spoken a few times about outliers and things such as 10,000 hours and right time, right place. You speak about the timing of going into the business world, and perhaps it wasn't the time, but it could have been better time, but it wasn't the wrong time.
Bro, I can tell you one thing for sure. Anybody who comes on this show anywhere else and tells you that when they look back, they can see how they worked out everything and meticulously timed it, it is nonsense. It was all just, a series of events that happened to fall just in line when I look back. But not least because of my efforts, if I can put it that way. You know, so when I finished my training contract or articles, I was in a nightclub in Durban on a Sunday night. No place for a young, ambitious man to be at. Cut a long story short, in the same place, a senior executive of Investec is traveling to the city because he's got meetings in the morning. And this little club was at the bottom of at the ground floor of a hotel, the famous Hilton Hotel. And back then it was a proper famous Hilton Hotel. Cut a long story short, I was there because a friend of mine was doing these Sunday night parties. And I met this gentleman there. He was quietly having a drink, clearly a hotel guest. Us as the young people were having a raucous time in the corner there. And I met him and he turned out to be Maponyane from Investec.
Oh, wow.
So we got talking. And what are you doing? Oh, no, just finished my articles. I'm about to go to the US for a short trip. But, oh, what are you going to do? I want to be an entrepreneur. But, I think I should go into investment banking. At this point, I don't know he works for Investec.
Jeez.
So he says, oh, investment banking, huh? Why? I'm like, no, because, I want to be in a place where people are doing the deals for the big companies. Because that's where you're going to learn. So, essentially school, except you're paying me to come to work. And right there he says, you should call me. I said, why? So he then tells me who he is and everything.
Wow.
And I got a long story short, I went for a series of interviews and I got offered the job, but I still had to go to the US for a short period of time as part of the Deloitte program, which was a great opportunity. So I went to the US for a few months, and April the next year, after finishing my articles, I joined Investec in Crayston Drive. And as far as I was concerned, I was just there to learn. But I did expect to be there maybe 5 years or so, not 2 years. So 2 years later, the bug started to bite. Now you're seeing things, you're learning from all the kind of exposure you've had, a little bit of exposure you've had in the business world. Remember, I'm also from Durban. So this is that big city stuff. Now you're in Joburg and you're meeting people, you get into the network. So there was one business opportunity that made me say, you know what, I think I should jump now.
But how much of that was a budding, young, keen entrepreneur was seeing the transactions that were happening from your clients, thinking, I can do this too?
I was absolutely thinking I was absolutely thinking. But I did have an appreciation that, good things take time. They don't just happen. They take time, they take hard work, they take focus, they take resilience, they take patience. So I knew that when I leave, I'm not going to do it tomorrow. But I did feel like I needed to start. And when I talk to the younger versions of myself, which I get a lot of opportunities to, I always help them appreciate the value of time. Rather find yourself in the right place, even if it takes long. Because every day you're there, you're learning. You're learning to perfect. As opposed to be not being where you ought to be. And because in a way, you're wasting time. Because you're not in the place where you're learning. So to answer your question directly, yes, I wanted to do it, but I knew it'll take time. And it did take time. But yeah, I don't look back and think I could have done it differently.
The Andile I know tends to have a permanent smile, always seems to be confident. We know you as this really successful person, but there must have been times where even you were thinking, is this the right step to make? Is it something I should be doing? And once you had made it, going, gee, have I really done the right thing?
So my boss at Investec gave me the best advice. When I told him I'm resigning, he said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to start my own business. He said, good. If it doesn't work out, phone me, I'll give you a job back.
Wow.
Nice.
And I said, why? He says, because you're a good kid, you can do your job. In fact, I'm not doing you a favor, Andile. You can probably apply for a job anywhere else and you'll probably get it. That helped me stress a little bit less. Because in a way, I'd put in the work to almost buy myself an insurance contract. I was a young black South African chartered accountant in 2004, 5. So chances are I'm not going to struggle. Because I have a qualification, I have some training, I trained with Deloitte, I put a board exam, I worked with Investec. I mean, hey, you're not going to die. The business may not work out. Whatever it is that you're doing may not work out. So, Dan, I can tell you hundreds of stories about the tough times in the journey, especially as an entrepreneur, because there's no safety net per se for the business. There might be a safety net for Andile and his wife Mandis and their 2 kids, in that I can go get another job, but I'll be doing something that's not who I am. I'll be doing it just to feed the family, which is not a life lived for me. But I wouldn't die in terms of a living, but I would probably die in terms of living the life I wish to. You know what I'm saying? So yes, there are many, many, many stories. Many stories. I remember moving our business back into my house out in the northern sides of Joburg. I bought this little nice house with my bonus from Investec. And the business was going through struggles. They couldn't pay rent. So the landlord, one morning we arrived at work, all our furniture was outside. I phoned my wife. I said, babe, you know that spare bedroom there? Because we only have one baby. I think that could be an office. So I moved all the stuff there. And we started operating the business there. We must have operated for a good 3 or 4 months. And again, I didn't sit there thinking, oh my goodness, so hard. It was like, it was a temporary thing. Until I find the next client or the next opportunity. And it worked out. Let's just say that. So yes, there's many stories I could tell you, but they don't matter because they are all just school. You're just learning. It's part of the journey. Failure in our world, it's just what you do. It's not even a thing. It's not a highlight. It just happens.
That journey from my startup to MSG, then now Kumalo Co. What's that journey been like, and how have you made that decision to keep moving the trajectory to those spaces?
So because of this passion I had for entrepreneurship, the story across all of those journeys, the thread, is all entrepreneurial ventures.
Yeah.
And my favorite business in our Kumalo Co group is still I'm an Entrepreneur, which is the business that succeeded my startup. And because there, I do the thing I love most, and that's hanging out with small business owners of all ages, at different stages of their businesses. From, oh, I got a great idea, I wish I could find money, to, man, I've built this business, now I'm selling it to a listed company. It's just amazing because in an entrepreneurial story is a life story.
Yeah.
Because they lived through that, right? They got married, they had kids, they moved countries, they were broke, then they made money, then they got broke again. There's like life stories and all that, and who doesn't want a good story? So all of that, through that journey, I would say that every single chapter that I decided to go into, it was driven by what I felt is a new way I would like to express my entrepreneurial desires and objectives and the things I want to achieve. So when I, for example, exited out of MSG in 2018, and it doesn't feel like it was 2018, it feels like it's been 10 years almost, and starting my own family office and going, I'm going to run a business that's owned purely by my family, and my job is to grow an investment portfolio of different businesses. So as opposed to running small businesses from the days of being kicked out of the offices, I'm now investing capital in other small businesses. So I feel like I'm at that age now where I'm young enough and old enough, you know. I can hang out with Dan, but I can hang out with the guy who was 5 years old when I finished high school. You know what I mean? And that's the best place to be, right? Because like you can kind of get a bit of both worlds. So it's an interesting journey when I'm ups, but it's a fulfilling one. It's one that every time you move to the next thing. I mean, I remember when I joined MSG, we were winning radio licenses at Capricorn. When I just joined, I went straight to a launch. You know, so giving them some people at work to win this radio license out in Limpopo. We had this new commercial radio station in a beautiful but very kind of rural province. We're trying to build this young urban radio station. Great journey, hiring people, giving opportunities to young people for the first time. People never thought they wanted a job in the media industry. Always believed they needed to go to Johannesburg or Pretoria and leave home. Yeah. Now there was this place where you could express your creative talents. Winning the Power license, Power 98.7 license, another talk radio station in a market where 702 and SAFM are so strong, you know, and you want to launch something new that's targeted at a very kind of high-end Black audience. All those ventures, I wouldn't look back and think, I wish I had not done that. All of them taught me a lot. Some made good money, some lost money, and some were just fun to be involved in.
There's a constant theme of time that comes through this conversation, and I think that's an appropriate time to head down to Boschendal and to Jacques, because time is such an important aspect when it comes to wine. Jacques, lovely to see you, lovely to have you back on the series. Talk to us a little bit about the art of time with wine, the art of aging, keeping wine, and with this particular wine, this Nicholas, how long we should be keeping it for, and when it's going to be at its very best.
Yeah, wine making is pretty much like making good investments. So firstly, where do we start? I think for a wine like Nicholas, the main focus is to ensure that we are getting the best terroirs, the best areas for the specific wine. So for Nicholas, we select the grapes from the coolest areas in the Cape Coastal region. Why do we do that? Is to have the perfect natural analysis. So it's worth your while just to make sure that you are investing in the correct investment. So doing a little bit of research, and once again, it's a team of us all working together to ensuring that we're getting the best possible vineyards for this. But once we've done that, once again, we would invest by buying the correct equipment, ensuring that we've got the right barrels to age the wine in as well. And then the aging actually for red wine starts straight after the making of it, where we really start aging it in barrel for about 12 months. And then we would put it back to barrel for another 2 to 3 months, depending on the year. Obviously watching it very carefully, how it's developing, ensuring that we put the correct wine and the perfect blend into bottle. After it's been bottled, I would say something that's really amazing about Nicholas or all our premium high-end wines is that we look under a microscope. We make sure that we've got no spoilage bacteria in it, and we bottle it through a pause filtration, just ensuring that we're stripping nothing away from the specific wine, just making sure that the beautiful, best quality goes into the bottle. And then by not stripping or disturbing any of the chemistry, this is phenomenal for aging ability. So if you can wait, obviously with the 2017 is what's out in the market. I can't wait, I drink them now, but this wine should age easily for 10 to 15 years. I'm even willing to say if you've got the correct cellar and you've got the right storing facility, 15 to 20 years easily. It's most of this wine is backed up with Bordeaux varietals, premium Cabernet, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Malbec from the Stellenbosch Helderberg region, and then the Syrah comes from Elgin, Stellenbosch and Swartland. So just softening this wine for drinking now are the Bordeaux varietals, giving it good tannin, low pH, nice natural acidity for aging ability. So yeah, that is my cue, 15 to 20 years, if you store it correctly.
Oh, there we go. Jacques Villiers, winemaker down at Boschendal. Thank you, Jacques, and thank you for some lovely wine. Cheers, guys.
Cheers,
and,
brother.
Cheers,
brother.
to your
Cheers,
wonderful
mate.
journey.
Yes, indeed.
To Maponyane and your fabulous hat.
Of course, always dapper, eh? But I do like the velvet jacket. In fact, I really enjoy it. In fact, having looked at it, I'm now ready for my sip.
I think there's one thing you realize as an entrepreneur, and Dan and I will continue to prove it in the series, that there's no dress code as an entrepreneur. Just kind of you go with it. But if I think of the journey you've been through, and when you were at MSG, for example, and having left Investec and then starting your own business and then having to move into the house.
Yeah.
MSG, I think you had close to 1,000 employees.
Yeah.
That was massive in the end, and that was something that seemed to be, I guess, a pursuit that you were taking your stride. But would you say, as two people at the top of that business, that success was given?
Never. My partner was given.
Yeah.
And like really, his name is given.
Don't explain the joke, Andile.
No, I kind of have to with this one. So no, it wasn't given, bro. It's absolutely earned. A lot of it though was, I think, just blessings. Some things happened to us. Yes, we put in the effort, but we got breaks that were just awesome. Like you can't look back and go, oh, I know how I got that. It's because, I'm so smart and I did this very thing. Yes, you do what you need to do every day. You put in the hard yards every day, right? You got to show up. You got to try and show up the best part of you. But a lot of the things, bro, just happen because at some points you feel like I'm really blessed. Like really cool things happen to me.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I mean, especially the size of the business that we had. And that's still there. I mean, Given continues to run a very sizable business with a lot of people. And when you got so many livelihoods kind of reliant on you, it becomes real. Yeah. So it was not given. It was definitely earned, but mostly just blessings.
Your suggestion that cool things happen to you, I think, underplays your own role quite significantly, because you have worked very hard for what you've done, and it's not a great act of serendipity. But that idea of cool things happening is very much where you are now, because you're making cool things happen for other people. So somebody who's watching this, they've got that first part of the entrepreneurship plan done, which is, I've got what I think is a brilliant idea. And then you start coming to the slightly tougher stuff, like I need rather a lot of money to make this work, and I need other people to believe in me. Where you are now, where you're investing in businesses, What is it about a business that catches your eye, that makes me think of all the thousands of pictures I'm getting this year, here's one that genuinely excites me?
Cash flow generation. Everything else is just a bright idea. Oh, my technology is amazing. Oh, you must see my product. Oh, we've got amazing people. All nice. Do we generate cash? And do we generate that cash exponentially? And are we likely to keep generating cash? And I speak cash, not profits. Because top line is a promise for payment. That's what it is. You send an invoice to someone, you say, hey man, I did some work for you. Here's what you should pay me. That doesn't mean he's gonna pay you. So it's only real when it actually hits the bank account. And I think if entrepreneurs found the discipline to say, if there was one metric I could measure to determine whether or not I have a good business, it is your ability to generate cash, not to issue out invoices only. If you get a contract for 3 billion, you issue a 3 billion invoice, But if you spend 3.5 billion building the road, you just lost yourself for $500 million.
Yeah.
So the important thing is, at the end of the day, whatever that day is, a month, a week, a year, do you generate enough cash? Because it's only then that you're able, as a shareholder, to take a little bit of sum for yourself. So I would say cash flow generation is probably my number one. Everything else follows that, right? How good your team is, how good the product is, how good potentially the technology is, how big a market is there for this particular thing. All of these things stack up to one answer at the end of the day. Do we generate cash? Or are we just all hanging out here and high-fiving each other and having a great time?
We all have a business, and it's going to be great, and we're part of the business, but it's not really doing it for anyone else.
Absolutely.
But with that in mind, and thinking of the VC landscape in South Africa, it's not particularly impressive, and we're both in that world where, having been on the initial upcoming entrepreneurial side, I always found that you were always given just enough money to survive, or you're given just enough money actually to see the business get started and then kind of crash and burn.
Yeah.
There's never really that big appetite to back a business.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the analogy of fuel in a plane that was just enough to take off and then immediately just hit the ground again. Can you say that you found those businesses, enough of those unicorns, enough of those horses that you've backed and have actually managed to make it the whole way around the track?
I have, and I guess all investors have their own theses. So to use your aeroplane technology, there are those guys that invest in the business when it's still in the hangar and the plane is still being put together. It hasn't flown a single flight before. It has not ever had customers sit in there who pay for the tickets. Yeah. It's early stages. And then there are the guys who buy into the aeroplane just before it takes off. So maybe it's sold a couple of tickets, but it hasn't really flown or whatever it may be. I'm the kind of guy that likes to buy the aeroplane when it's in the air. But it's not necessarily at 30,000 feet yet, because that's the listing, right? That's the businesses that you and I can buy off our share portfolios in the market, because it's clearly flying. Yeah. It's clearly in cruise mode. It's clearly going to make its way to its destination. Yes, it still needs the pilot to land it right, but it's okay. So I like them when they're at the takeoff. The thing must be built. The tickets must be sold. The customers have checked in. The safety checks have been done. Seatbelts are on. You've had the announcements from everybody. We've taken off, and now we are climbing. That's the place I prefer. Why? Because then I can see the resilience of the team from the hangar all the way to takeoff. But I can also now share in the vision of trying to get to 30,000 feet. But that's my choice. So I think where a lot of the VC kind of bad rap has come from has been the large amount of failures that happen at hangar level. And you can expect that, right? Because it's a high risk level. It's also where you get high returns if you pick them right. I don't think I'm really good at picking them right. What I'm really good at is helping you gain altitude, to pick your analogy. I'm good at that. I'm not good at determining that this thing will one day fly just because they put some chip in the engine. No, that's not what I'm good at.
On a completely unrelated note, you were once a director at SAA, weren't you?
Best time of my life. Best time of my life. I'm not joking. I learned so much there. Guys, you watch these things from a distance. You don't really understand. I didn't really understand what happens behind the scenes. And now you read all the headlines of the airline. I really wish it does come back, but what's happening now should have happened 10 years ago. it should absolutely have a commercial, private equity, business, commercial partner who ensures that the thing is run on commercial terms. Then we'll have our airline.
We can't help you to help SAA get back on their feet on this particular show, but we can help you to help somebody else, because I think although we do have a check to give you, it's probably not quite enough to cover the challenges that our national carrier faces. We have a check for 10,000 Rand, and we would like to give it to you from Boschendal to pass on to a young entrepreneur, a young entrepreneurial platform, somewhere where you feel 10,000 Rand will be stretched further than anybody else can imagine and could really make a difference in the life of somebody or in the life of a business or a business space. Where would that money be going, Mr. Kumalo?
And Andile, it's not for a stake in their business. You have to just give it to them.
It's not investment capital.
It's not investment capital. It's just, it's all theirs.
I was about to pull out the term sheet. So I have somebody. Late last year, I was involved in a tour with South African Tourism, who are trying to do the best they can for tourism entrepreneurs who are obviously first in line in terms of being negatively impacted by COVID-19. And they ran an SME workshop just on, and my job was to help them implement some things in their businesses that will help them better manage this time. Because as you can imagine, there was zero tourism, and many of them pivoted into other things, etc. So I met a young man when we went to Bloemfontein. His name is Tankiso. Tankiso makes furniture from crates, the normal crates that lift beers and sugar and all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. So he goes to these kind of companies and he either takes them a scrap or he buys it off them. And he makes the coolest outdoor furniture I have ever seen. In fact, at the event where we were, South African Tourism had gotten him to provide all the furniture. Jeez. And so what he's done is that he used to make it and sell it. But now he makes it and keeps some and he just leases it out now because he can refurbish it himself. So his business was affected by COVID because there were no events, because nobody was doing anything. So I would like to give the 10,000 Rand to Tankiso out in Bloemfontein in the Free State. And he really stood out for me at that event. He was confident. He believed in his business. He sold his business hard. He must have pitched to me 3 or 4 times. So thank you, so wherever you are, you've earned your pitch. 10,000 Rand, courtesy of Boschendal. Thank you, gentlemen.
Oh, I think that's a fantastic selection.
Cheers, bro.
I look forward to
Cheers,
seeing
brother.
some of his furniture and watching his business grow. Young, dynamic, believes in his business, won't let it go. Does it remind you of anybody, Maps?
Absolutely. I can't think of anybody you might be referring to.
Oh, dear. Andile, we could stretch this out for hours because you're an absolute wealth of wisdom in this particular space. And you live entrepreneurship. I think as much as anyone we've shared time with, Maps.
Dan, we're just about to wrap it up, but I just really want to ask you one question to kind of put this all together. You speak about embracing failure and how that's something that you haven't feared, which has led to your successes. But there's one, I guess, aspect of failure that you do fear, and that's failing or disappointing Mampink. How's it worked so far? Have you disappointed her at all in this and all these decisions you've
Pinky,
made?
that's my mom.
Have you found a real job? Is she backing all of that? Can you look back and say cheers to the life and the decisions I made?
I can absolutely look back and say cheers to the life. Coolest thing is she moved up from Durban to be closer to us and her grandchildren. I have a sister who also lives here in Johannesburg. So now I get to see her more often. And I think I'm succeeding in showing her that I actually have a real job. But yeah, luckily for me, I think she's come around.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
It's been
you,
wonderful
brother.
having you on the show.
Oh, that's a good one, Mum.
Cheers to you and your success.
Cheers, man.
Cheers,
Thank you.
Andile.
Absolutely.
And thank you for sharing all of that with us. Another great South African entrepreneur. He's done so much in a relatively short space of time and has given us some real insight into the wonderful journey he's had. He might have been a failed footballer many, many years ago, but he's more than made up for it in the world of business. Cheers.
Cheers.